Bitcoin, Bitcoin, Bitcoin,
Bitcoin, Bitcoin. Give me the Bitcoin. Where is it?
Bitcoin mania is well and truly upon us, guys. The world is going crazy, crazy, crazy for Bitcoin. Everyone's finding out about it. Your Uncle Tom, your grandma, everybody wants to know what is up with Bitcoin. Is it going to go to zero or is it going to go to $1 million? We're going to be looking at the numbers behind that and trying to calculate just how far Bitcoin is going to go. All that and more after a quick shout out to everyone who has been hitting that like button, and of course everybody who has been subscribing to the channel, guys. If you are a new subscriber, welcome to the channel. If you're an old subscriber, thanks for sticking around. If you're not subscribed yet, hit the button just down there, guys, to stay up to date with all the latest in the crypto space. And this is not professional financial advice. This is just a dude talking about cryptocurrencies on the internet. At the time of recording this video, Bitcoin is worth $13,442.10. Don't forget about the cents, of course. That is, of course, a new all-time high. Bitcoin has been growing at an exponential rate. The market cap is currently sitting at 224 billion. Let's call it 225 billion. We're only a few million away from that, and that seems like nothing in Bitcoin terms. Now, the question everybody wants to know is, when's the bubble going to pop? When's it all going to go to zero? Well, the people who ask questions when Bitcoin is going to go to zero don't understand the concept of currency, of demand, of supply, because the supply of Bitcoin is fixed at 21 million. That's the maximum ever. The circulating supply currently is 16,724,612 Bitcoin. Up to a quarter of those are estimated to have been lost forever. And blockchain technology isn't going anywhere, and this is the key representative of blockchain technology. It has the name recognition that is so important. It's, Bitcoin's more famous than Elvis Presley now, probably. Well, maybe not. A lot of people like Elvis, but nevertheless, it's going to be. Everyone's going to know about it, and everyone's going to have it. So to think that Bitcoin's going to go to zero is not a realistic conversation. The conversation we need to be having is, how high can Bitcoin go, and when? That is, of course, a question that a lot of people want answered. We're going to try to address that in this video. Now, if you look on the previous year, on this day, Bitcoin was only at $763. Now, you do have to understand that there was a long bear market. A bear market, for those of you who aren't familiar with the term, is a time when the markets are stubbornly down, basically. And so Bitcoin was at a very low price for a very long time. There wasn't any of this upward action that we've been seeing recently. But the word has got out about Bitcoin. This represents a 17.5 times growth in 1 year. 17.5 times growth. That is outstanding growth. Now, the $60,000 Bitcoin, that is the $1 trillion market cap. That's only a 3x growth from here. That's going to happen. If you don't think that Bitcoin's going to be worth $60,000, you're not paying attention. Again, max supply is low. This is a deflationary currency. US dollars, euros, all that stuff, they're inflationary. The government just keeps printing them out, make as much as they want, and they just say, hey, this has value, and everyone believes it. That's the main idea behind a currency, of course. Everyone has to believe that it has value, and everyone believes that Bitcoin has value, in particular because of the underlying blockchain technology and the fact that it is a deflationary currency. I have to repeat that point because I think it's really important here. Now, $60,000 Bitcoin. That sounds pretty good if you get in today, doesn't it? You can get $13,400 Bitcoin, and it turns into $60,000. And I think that's going to happen a lot sooner than a lot of people realize. The institutional money is coming. Big money is coming. Little money's coming. All the money's coming. As I said, little investors are starting to get involved. They're buying, 0.01 Bitcoin and holding on to it because they realize it's going to be a good investment. Pretty soon, the days of owning one Bitcoin are going to seem like a fantasy of the past. That's why now is such an important time to be getting involved and actually make sure you get yourself a Bitcoin if you can, because in the future having a Bitcoin is going to seem like a really, really big deal. Much more of a big deal than it is at the moment. Now, the timeline is important. John McAfee comes out, of course, and said that he's going to eat his own junk on air if, Bitcoin doesn't reach $1 million by 2020. Now, he bases this on the fact that on his original estimate of Bitcoin reaching $500,000 by 2020, or he would eat his junk on live TV, that number was based on previous calculations which were actually blown out of the water by Bitcoin. This is the thing, all predictions on Bitcoin have largely been wrong. It just keeps surprising people, reaching new all-time highs sooner than anybody thinks is going to happen. The demand is so strong for Bitcoin right now. It's really quite unbelievable. Now, how are we going to get to a $1 million Bitcoin? Well, that is a lot, and that is a really, really big market cap. And I think that is important to keep in mind just how big that is. Now, as we mentioned, the $60,000 Bitcoin gives us a $1 trillion market cap. The $1 million Bitcoin gives us a market cap closer to $17 trillion. Now, that's a lot of money that's got to come into the market. And it's not that I don't think that's going to happen. I just don't think it's going to happen on John McAfee's timeline. But let's just explore that for a second. If we had the same growth pattern next year as we've had this year, that is to say we have another 17.5 time growth next year, well, we start getting pretty close, actually. That would give us not quite the $1 million Bitcoin, but we'd be getting close. We would have to have another 17.5x growth the following year, and that would actually give us a $4 million plus Bitcoin at that stage. So if the growth continues at this rate, well, yeah, maybe. But you got to remember, too, if we have a $4 million Bitcoin, again, possible in the long term, that gives us something like a $64 trillion market cap. Seems pretty big. I want to compare that to some other numbers to get you thinking about the possibility of this. Now, this is the global GDP. The GDP of the entire world currently sits at $79.2 trillion. Interesting. So if Bitcoin goes by 17.5 times this year, 17.5 times next year, and 17.5 times the year after that, Bitcoin would be worth about as much as the entire global economy. That's every little farmer farming his rice field. That's every dude sitting in an office pushing papers. That's everything. Bitcoin becomes as big as everything. It's pretty big. Pretty big. Now, I'm super bullish on Bitcoin, and I think we got amazing potential moving forward for it as a global currency, as a global means of exchange, as a store of value even. But that seems a bit big for that time period. So that means we're probably not going to experience that 17.5 times growth consistently next year and the year after. As Bitcoin prices go higher and higher, it's not that the demand will necessarily slow down, but the actual buying will slow down as people look and go, God, it's just so expensive. But that time's a bit of a ways off. It's now still pretty cheap compared to where it's going to be going. Now, what we want is the 2020 number here, don't we? So let's look. 2020, $93 trillion global economy in 2020. So that would make Bitcoin a little bit smaller than the global economy in 2020. It's a pretty big number, though. Now, another thing that Bitcoin often gets compared to, and I don't think the comparison is fair by any means, but we're going to talk about it a little bit anyway, just to try and think about it, is the gold market. Now, the gold market is worth $7.7 trillion currently. Bitcoin currently is just a fraction of that market. Now, gold has been used as a store of value over the years by people for a long time. I feel like now yes, gold perhaps is still a good store of value. It's fairly steady, especially compared to Bitcoin, although Bitcoin does offer much better return potential, obviously. Not to mention that, gold is heavy and, all this stuff. I think gold's probably better off used for microchips and stuff like that and less as a store of value. But people are still buying it as a store of value, and for the gold bugs, that's their thing. But the point here is that if you compare gold and Bitcoin, the thing you have to keep in mind, Bitcoin is way rarer than gold. If you look here, the total amount of gold, 5,820,203,717 gold ounces exist in the world. Currently, of course, they're mining a little bit more all the time. But that makes Bitcoin, because remember, let's just take the total number ever in existence that there will be. That's 21 million. That would make Bitcoin comparatively about 300 times rarer than gold, because there's only 0.3 Bitcoin percentage-wise compared to how much gold there is. So that is an amazing difference. An amazing difference. Now, does that mean that Bitcoin is going to be 300 times more valuable than the gold market? Well, I'm not sure, because again, that is an astronomically large number. But one thing I think we could look at, and this might give us some guidance, is that these numbers aren't always based in necessarily reality. Because if you look at like the derivatives market, for example, 544 trillion for the derivatives market, and so much of that is just fantasy money. If Bitcoin were to reach $4 million of Bitcoin, let's say, that's pretty substantial, but it's not out of bounds. That would put it about the size of the entire global stock market, which is a pretty big number, to be honest. It would put it at just below the total money supply in the world, the broad money supply, that is. It would put it at a significant value of the global real estate market, and of course, would just be a drop in the bucket compared to the global derivatives market. And that's not, of course, basing the numbers off of what the global derivatives market is going to look like in 2020. It'll be even bigger. But nevertheless, I feel like McAfee may be giving us a good show in 2020. Unfortunately, I don't want anything bad to happen to John. He seems like a really interesting guy. But I feel like that $1 million Bitcoin, it's definitely a number to aspire to for Bitcoin, and I definitely think it's going there. It's just a question of when, because the growth rate will slow down. Now, money will keep pouring in, and we're going to see new all-time highs all the time with Bitcoin. We really, really are. But, that $1 million number, it's a lot. It's a lot. Now, before I give you my final estimate, just a quick note. If you're not involved in Bitcoin yet, guys, you got to get involved in this. We are still early days, and look, yeah, you missed out on the $3,000 Bitcoin. You missed out on the $5,000 Bitcoin. You missed out on the 7 and the 10 and the 11 and the $12,000 Bitcoin. And there may be some pullbacks in the future where we see a $10,000 Bitcoin again. But I tell you, everybody who, bought the top at $5,000 and people were ridiculing them, saying, you bought the top, what a terrible mistake. It's really, really difficult to predict this market, guys. Buy it and hold it. That's probably the most difficult thing you can ever do. Simply hold your Bitcoin once you've bought it and wait for it to go up. It is appreciating at a massive rate and does have massive forward potential. Now, you can get it on an exchange. A lot of people say the best way is just buy it, put it on a wallet, and forget about it. I can't use Coinbase, but a lot of people, for example, in the States and in many countries can use Coinbase. There are a lot of other exchanges where you can go and simply just buy Bitcoin. Buy it, hold it, forget it. You can also do home mining to get it. Bitmain, for example, sells miners if you've got the right setup at your home and you think you can do that. Rock and roll. Home mining is very profitable. You can do cloud mining. I do cloud mining. Hashflare currently has the cheapest rate in the game at $1.50 per gigahash. Come and check it out if you're interested in that. The returns on it are really good right now, even though it is a 1-year contract, and you can of course get some over at bitcoin.com as well, although they're about twice the price of Hashflare. But the important thing, whatever option you choose, whether you just buy it, whether you mine at home, whether you cloud mine, you got to get involved before the ship sails, because at some point there will reach that point where, yeah, you missed the boat on Bitcoin. When we have a $1 million Bitcoin, which is coming, it's coming, it's just a matter of when. But when we have that $1 million Bitcoin, that's when prices are probably going to steady out. Because I said, moving from 1 million to, for example, 4 million is crazy. It requires a lot of money to come into Bitcoin. And it's not to say that money's not going to come in. It will over time. But let's just focus on the $1 million Bitcoin right now. I don't think it's going to hit in 2020. It's but I've always been too conservative. Maybe John McAfee living his life the way he has, he's got a particular insight on, the crazy world that goes on. But I'm a little more conservative with my estimates. I look at the growth that's happened already. I look at what it's going to take to get a $1 million Bitcoin. $17 trillion is a lot of money to come in. That's just for Bitcoin, guys. We're not talking about all other cryptocurrencies. Right now, of course, Bitcoin maintains market dominance. But nevertheless, I really feel like $1 million may be too much. Personally, I'm looking at the $200,000 Bitcoin by 2020. So it's January 1st, 2020. We're looking at a $200,000 Bitcoin. Now that seems like a lot, but to put it in perspective, that only gives us, a market cap of around $4 trillion just for Bitcoin. And now institutional investors may surprise us. The billionaires may wade in. We'll have to wait and see what happens. Certainly the game is developing at a very interesting rate. But whether I'm right, or John McAfee's right, or the guy who says it's only going to go to 25,000 is right, or the guy who says it's going to go to 50,000 is right, what amazing potential moving forward for Bitcoin. And look, I know price is really exciting, and we often get hung up on the price of Bitcoin, and it's understandable because it's exciting, it's life-changing for a lot of people who are getting involved in Bitcoin and have seen those gains and who have become millionaires from Bitcoin, or like the Winklevoss twins, they become billionaires from Bitcoin and will be multi-billionaires just from Bitcoin. It's very exciting. But you have to remember, this is part of the global financial revolution too, and it's also really exciting to be involved in from that perspective. You are taking back control. You are being your own bank. There is a reason why central bankers come out against Bitcoin all the time, why governments come out against Bitcoin. They see it as a threat. They can't control it. This is the financial revolution, guys. Get involved. Make sure you are getting yourself some Bitcoin if you haven't got it yet. What is your number, by the way? 200,000 is just my number. It might be way too conservative. Let me know in the comment section down below, what do you think Bitcoin is going to be valued at on January 1st, 2020? Let me know about it. Long live the blockchain, guys, and peace out till next time.